How does overtime law differ between provinces? Why overtime rules are not uniform? Overtime in Canada is not governed by a single national rule. Each province sets its own standards for when overtime starts, how it is calculated, and which roles are exempt. For a US company hiring in multiple provinces, this means you cannot pick one overtime rule and apply it everywhere. The risk is not just technical non-compliance, but long-term underpayment of employees who later seek back pay for hours that should have attracted overtime. Different thresholds for overtime eligibility. In many provinces, overtime is triggered when an employee works more than a certain number of hours in a day or week, but the specific thresholds vary. Some focus primarily on weekly hours, while others also include daily triggers. The point is that the same schedule can be treated differently depending on where the employee works. A pattern that does not generate overtime in one province might trigger it in another, even for identical roles. Variations in overtime rates and averaging. The general idea that overtime pays a premium over regular wages is consistent, but the exact rate and how it is applied can differ. Provinces may allow averaging agreements under certain conditions, where hours are averaged over longer periods to determine overtime. Those agreements usually have formal requirements and are not something you can do informally. If you use averaging without meeting the rules, you might later be told that overtime should have been paid on a straightforward daily or weekly basis all along. Who is and is not covered by overtime? Not every worker is entitled to overtime. Some categories of employees are excluded or subject to different rules, such as certain managers, professionals, or specific industry roles. The definition of who qualifies for an exemption is not identical across provinces. Assuming that a broad exempt category from US law maps neatly onto Canadian exemptions is dangerous. You have to look at the local rules and ask whether a particular job truly fits the criteria, not just whether it sounds senior. Impact of remote work and changing locations. Remote work adds complexity. If an employee moves from one province to another but keeps the same role, the overtime rules can shift under their feet. Your payroll system has to track which province's standards apply at any given time. That means HR needs to know when someone changes their primary work location, and employment contracts and policies have to reflect that location-sensitive reality. Treating Canada as a single jurisdiction for overtime is a recipe for hidden back pay exposure. Link between overtime and other entitlements. Overtime rules do not sit alone. They interact with rest periods, maximum hours, and public holiday rules. For example, if overtime is triggered after a certain number of hours in a day, that limit shapes how you schedule long shifts and how you handle holiday work. Some provinces allow time off in lieu of overtime pay under specific conditions, but those arrangements have to be structured carefully and documented. A casual promise to give time off later may not meet legal requirements. Typical mistakes foreign employers make. Foreign employers often fall into a few predictable traps. One is assuming that being salaried automatically removes a person from overtime. In many provinces, salary status alone does not eliminate overtime rights. Another is applying a single overtime rule designed for one province to all Canadian staff. A third is forgetting to adjust overtime practices when expanding into a new province or when employees move. These mistakes usually go unnoticed during stable periods and then surface when someone leaves and questions their historical pay. Using technology to handle complexity. Modern payroll and time tracking systems can manage provincial overtime rules if they are configured properly. When you track hours accurately and assign each employee to the correct province, the software can apply local thresholds and rates automatically. The real mistake is trying to simplify configuration by pretending the rules are identical everywhere. Facing the complexity at setup is safer than correcting years of underpayment later. Training managers on scheduling and overtime. Managers still shape overtime exposure through the schedules they create. If they rely on long back-to-back shifts or constant last-minute overtime, costs rise and compliance risk follows. Brief training on how overtime works in the provinces where you operate helps managers see that their scheduling decisions have legal and financial consequences, not just operational ones. Audits, claims, and retroactive exposure. Overtime issues often come to light during audits or when former employees file claims. Because overtime is tied to hours worked, the evidence lives in timesheets, schedules, and payroll records. If those records show consistent patterns of hours above provincial thresholds without corresponding overtime pay, back pay can be ordered. For a foreign employer, the surprise is usually how far back such claims can reach and how quickly modest underpayments add up across multiple employees and years. Final thoughts. Overtime law in Canada differs by province in ways that matter for real paycheckies. Thresholds, rates, exemptions, averaging rules, and links to other entitlements all shift as you cross provincial borders. For U.S. employers, the solution is not to memorize every subsection of every statute, but to accept that provincial rules are real and to bake them into your contracts, policies, and payroll systems. When you do that, overtime turns from a source of anxiety into a predictable part of your labor costs. If you require assistance with Canadian tax matters, our team is ready to provide reliable professional support. Please contact us at 416-283-8774 or visit theaccountingandtax.com for more information. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.